Hello out there YouTube, Mr. Drybones here, and I finally have a new video for you. This is something that I've wanted to go over for a little while, but we're finally going to get into it. And without further ado, we're going to take a look at the Pokemon trading figure game. Oh, look at that. Look at all those beautiful figures in there. Actually, let me get closer to the camera. There we go, the Pokemon trading figure game. So yeah, we're going to take a look at this. Oh god, it's off center. There we go. So we're going to take a look at the Pokemon trading figure game. We're going to look at the rules. We're going to look at some of my favorite figures. And yeah, we'll go from there. So hey, let's go ahead and take a look at the Pokemon trading figure game. So per the instructions start here, this is the instruction booklet. Now this one in particular actually came from the Groundbreakers set, which was the second set, which never got a complete full release. But a couple of the decks actually did get released to the public, but they were very hard to find at the time. The game itself came out around the early 2010s, late 2000, and it was only available for about 6 months overall. The first set, which was called Next Quest, included quite a few figures, and I actually have most of them. I've actually been toying with the idea of completing the set. And then the Groundbreakers set came out a few months after. It kept getting delayed until finally it just kind of disappeared from shelves. Without going into too much history for the game, because that's really just kind of boring, the game was sold in booster packs. You could buy a deck which came with 3 figures and a trainer, or you could buy individual blind packs which came in 1, 2, or 3 Pokemon. The name suggested that the game was supposed to be a trading figure game, so you trade with your friends or random people at the Pokemon Trading Card Game League, wherever it was in your local comic book shop or wherever you bought your cards. A lot of people had the same figures. You know, characters like Lugia and Pikachu were very common, and it was very easy to find people who had a lot of the same figures. So for every rare figure you had, you probably had 3 or 4 of the not rare figures. Now that wasn't bad, but when you're a younger kid, it's hard to get your parents to justify buying you booster packs when you already have some of the figures that are right on the packaging. At the time, I was in my early 20s, and it was very easy for me to buy figures ad nauseum because I had a job. But hey, you know what? I'm not going to brag about how many figures I've got. Let's go ahead and talk about the game itself. So looking at the starting pamphlet here, the quick start explains the game pretty quickly. Each player chooses his or her bench of 3 Pokemon. On the other side, I'll show you the game map briefly. You flip a coin to see who goes first. The typical tradition that I usually followed was letting the younger player go first. You know, it's very handy, especially if you've got kids to play this with. And then the player who moves their first Pokemon moves 1 less space than their maximum number of spaces. So let me give you an example. I'm going to go ahead and pick one of the figures. I picked some of my favorite ones. Here we go. Eevee. Eevee has 3 move points. So on the first turn, Eevee would only be able to move 2 spaces. You'd move across the game board, which I'll show you in a little bit. And then if you encountered another trainer, you would do a spin, which the game even gives you proper spinning etiquette. You put your finger down on a little plastic nub, put your other hand on the other side, and then you'd give it a spin. And then there are also trainer cards, which I didn't dig out here, but I could probably go grab them, which never really got fully used into the game. You could use them, and they were done by using your trainer. We'll show that in a little while. We'll show that when I get to the board. But they really didn't get implemented a whole lot. They also were going to bring in status conditions with the Groundbreakers set, but they never fully got implemented, which is really a shame. And then over here, it talks about assembling your Pokemon. Now, you'll notice the black ring around the top. I'm going to grab 2 figures here. So we've got Eevee, and we've got Zangoose here. So the thing with these 2 is you'll notice that they have a white and a black base. This is how you could tell your figures apart from your opponent. And they could easily come off. You just gave them a twist and they slide right off, and then you put them back on. Now this is important if you actually decide, hey, you know what, I want to get some of these figures, and you're checking them out on eBay or what have you. Make sure they've got the base here. Make sure they've got this ring, because if they don't, you're going to find yourself having your Pokemon figures fall apart. See? So keep that in mind if you decide to get into the game yourself. Now, the thing with this is you can actually, on the other side of the instructions, you actually have the checklist of all the figures. So I imagine all these figures were made and probably got some bit of production, but I've never seen them in the wild other than the starter decks that came out for the Groundbreakers set, which included Pokemon such as Latios, Latias, Mightyena. I always wanted the Mightyena one. That's one of my favorite Pokemon, but I was never able to find one. And a few others. And then at the bottom you have the trainers. We'll talk about the trainers in a little bit. But let me unfold the game board and we'll talk about that just a little bit. And then I'll show off some of my favorite figures. And here's the game board. As you can see, it's a very simple game. You've got your bench where you put your 3 Pokemon on either side, and this is where, the different rings make a difference. You take the side based on which ring side you had. Not that it really mattered overall as long as you kept track of your figure, but it made it a little bit of a difference. And then on the edges, you actually have a little bit about the rules. The Pokemon figures have different colors on their bases so you can see what their attacks and abilities do. So Zangoose there only has white and blue, but if I take Murkrow here, you've got purple as well, and there's also orange. And the game breaks down very simply. Orange is the worst thing you can get. It's a miss. Your attack does nothing. Then it goes white. If both Pokemon land on white, that's just a standard attack. The attack that does more damage wins. And then there's purple. The higher number of stars is the one that works. And some of them will have really unique abilities, like this one, the defending Pokemon returns to the bench and has wait. Wait was a status condition where the Pokemon had to wait 1 turn before you could use it again. And then it has the types and the move points, which don't really do anything. I wonder if they're ever going to implement types into the game, but nothing came of it. And then the final condition was blue. Blue was dodge, so if you landed on a blue, that means whatever your opponent did, it misses, and the battle kind of ends in a draw. Nothing really changes. Now, besides the 3-on-3 board, there was also a 6-on-6 board. So this one was a little bit more complex because now you have skips, I'll call them a skip, between the bottom line and the middle line. And you also got 6 Pokemon now. You got to have your trainer, which would go in the corner, and then you'd have 2 places in the Pokemon Center instead of 1. The Pokemon Center is where you go when your Pokemon gets knocked out, and it has to stay there until another Pokemon gets knocked out, or in the case of 6v6, 2 Pokemon get knocked out, and then it gets put back on your bench. At the height of the Pokemon trading figure game, people were actually printing out their own unique game boards, and some of them had some really great ideas. Now, this is the official board, of course, but there were some people that had ones that had warp points on the map so you could go from one end to the other, and it was actually a really cool way of innovating in the game. Now that we're headed back to the 3-on-3 board, the flow of the game worked like this. You'd flip a coin or let the younger player go first, depending on how you wanted to do it, and each player would move along the board. There's 2 entry points, and there was a fair amount of strategy to it. For example, if I set my Eevee figure here, or if I reach this space in the board, my opponent can no longer come in on that side of the board. So they have to come in on this side, which actually opens up some unique strategies. There's some other things you can do too, such as if you plant one of your heavy Pokemon, Pokemon with low move points typically have high attack power, your opponent cannot land on that space. So using one of their attacks to try and knock you off is a good way to do it, or having a Pokemon with a unique power, such as Murkrow, which blows the opponent away, could free up the space. The way to win the game was by simply getting your figure on your opponent's goal. I usually played it a little bit different where I would require, but if the opponent wanted to, we'd add the additional rule where you have to keep the goal for 1 additional turn, because the game is very finicky in terms of how long it can be. I played some games that would last up to an hour, and some as few as 3 minutes, because if you have a Pokemon with a high move point, you can move across the board extremely quickly and get to the goal very fast. There are a few other little rules into the game that actually made things a bit more advanced. For example, if your Pokemon gets surrounded by your opponent, so I can no longer move Eevee is automatically knocked out. You can also not go backwards, so if Sentret comes from this side, I cannot go back. I can only move forward. Now the board is designed so that no matter which way you're going, you usually have a way out unless you get surrounded. The corners are always nice, is because it would take all of your opponent's figures to surround it to be able to knock it out. So despite the deceptively simple nature of the game, there were actually quite a bit of strategy that you could implement into the game. And like I said, it's simple enough that anybody can pick up and play in just a few minutes. Now we can go about and talk about the trainers. So if you wanted to play a trainer card, you'd have to take your trainer and you'd have to give him a spin, and if it landed on miss, the trainer card would fail. If it landed on success, they would play. But that's really about as far into the game as it got. Now, I'd like to show you something else, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, that's the Pokemon trading figure game in a nutshell. All these figures are my actual figures from when I was younger, and I'm very happy with them. They're really cool. I'm going to keep them, forever, because it is a fun game, and although it's hard to find people to play nowadays, I do really enjoy it, and I've got more than enough figures to be able to get 1 or 2 people to play. So how about we take a look at some of my favorite figures, and we'll wrap it up with that. So here we go. let's take a look at Murkrow. So it's a beautiful sculpt on this figure. I don't think this is the best sculpt, but it's really, really good. I think the paint job is really well done. It's really, really cool on the bottom. It's actually got the Pokemon, information from the Pokedex, things like that. These came out, if I'm not mistaken, around the same time as Pokemon Black and White. So they were really cool little figures. And I got Zangoose, we've already looked at. Again, another really beautiful sculpt on there. Look at that. I usually have a whole bunch of these, or at least I used to, and then I gave them to a friend and then they magically disappeared. So maybe one day I'll learn not to just let people borrow or take things. Now let's see. This is a cool one. I know a lot of people and myself really like Absol. It's a really cool Pokemon. Paint's job is not spectacular on this one, but it is a very nice figure. Very simple pose, but it looks really good. This is actually one of the more durable figures of the set. The ones like this that have a simple sculpt actually hold up a little bit better, and you'll see what I mean in a little bit. And then this one is also one that I really like. I have a couple of these ones still, Meowth. So another beautiful sculpt on there. Look at how happy he is and how much life is just in this sculpt. It's really, really nice. Really well put together. Again, some blemishes on the paint, but to be expected. They're small. They were sold at like $5 a piece. You really can't expect too much out of it. Meowth was a very good figure too. Look at that ability. Switch Meowth in the defending Pokemon. This was the Pokemon you wanted to use if your opponent was sitting on the goal. Because look at that. Almost a third of that dial is on Fake Out. And then next, we can't do, we can't talk about Pokemon. We can't do a video about Pokemon without including Pikachu here. So Pikachu's sculpt is really good. Look at that. He's, pulling down a Thunder Shock or a Thunderbolt or something like that, and it's coming off of his back foot. Look at that. He's a really cool looking figure. Now, he's got several powerful attacks, and he's got a dodge and a couple of mistiles. But Pikachu is a pretty decent figure. I've got a couple of these too. But he's really well done. Look at that. Look at that expressive face. One of the very few times you don't see Pikachu smiling in official artwork. Alright, this one's really nice too. Skarmory. I actually traded somebody for this one. Now Skarmory is a pretty, the ones that on the, the clear poles, these ones are actually very, very easy to break. I've got a Spearow where the glue came out on the bottom of the pole, so it actually fell off. I was able to re-glue it, but, still very, 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 very fragile. This one was one of the more rare figures too. You didn't see too many of these, but he is beautiful. Look at that. Look at that face and that detail on there. He was pretty good too, if I recall. Fly away, 3 stars. Skarmory jumps over the defending Pokemon if possible. So if they weren't in a corner, you could jump over them. This was a really handy way if you were trying to get through the middle of the board. This one is probably the best sculpt. I think this is probably the best sculpt in the series. Look at this for Alligator. Look at that. Rising out of the water like that. It's gorgeous. Look at his, look at the expression on his face. He is ready to battle. This one is beautiful. I think this would arguably be the best sculpt out of all the figures. And he's a heavy. He's only 1 move point, and he's got some damage, and then he's got a purple attack which moves the defending Pokemon away. So if you've got him sitting on your goal post, you can use that, and if you land on that ability, you're going to push the opponent away, and you're going to buy yourself some time before they can attack you again, because they'll have wait, so they'll have to wait 1 turn before they can try again. Then we have this one. Don't look at this one. I have 2 Misties, so don't worry. Yeah, that one broke. Somebody stepped on that one. But I do have a second Misty, and it's a really beautiful sculpt. This is using, I believe, for Pokemon Yellow design. And then, she's got a very large success, and then she's got the, small miss for using trainer cards. And then the thing with her is she's got a blue stripe on here, which you saw on some of the trainer figures, but not the ones that came with decks. I don't know why. They never explained. This was never put into the rules about what the blue one did. Some people speculated that you get to keep your trainer card if you landed on a blue area, but no one really knows for sure. But still, look at that sculpt. Look at how nice Misty looks here. It's really, really great. Let me see if we can get it. There we go. Look at that. Really good paint job on there, too. Now again, you can't talk about Pokemon without talking about Eevee. Another beautiful sculpt. Look at Eevee on these rocks here, and look at the detail on the rocks, and on Eevee's face here, and the tufts of fur. It's a beautiful figure. Eevee was pretty good. Eevee only had a small miss percentage, but look at how much bigger the dodge area is. And then it's got a, a power-up ability. Spin until you get something other than focus energy. The result does double damage. So Eevee was not a very weak figure, but it moved pretty well. You know, what is it, 3 move spaces? So it could move across the board quickly, and if you were lucky, you could do a lot of damage. And then Tauros, look at this, look at Tauros here. Very heavy though, look at that. He definitely weighs himself down, but look at that. The quality on that figure is really good. I can understand why they might have stopped manufacturing these. They were probably too expensive to manufacture and they weren't pulling in enough money. But it was a very cool game. You know, often you'd see them sold out, or you'd see kids steal them and then leave the packaging behind, you know, rip them open and see if that was a Pokemon they needed. That happened a lot. I remember it happening particularly with the Pokemon trading card game Player's Guide from Nintendo Power, which came with a special Meowth card or something. Yeah, people would steal those right out of the Player's Guide. And then here is Sentret. I love Sentret is one of my favorite Pokemon overall, but it's a very simple figure, but he's standing on his tail, and now look at that. The paint job is practically immaculate on there. It's beautiful. It makes you wonder why they had trouble with some of the early amiibos when you see how good quality these were, you know, almost 10 years prior. And Sentret was pretty decent. He had, you know, 2 move space, and he had step away, moved 1 to 3 spaces away from your opponent. Pretty cool. And Salamance. Here we go. Look at him. His tail wrapped around there, the big red wings. And look at that. Huge amount of damage potential. Small miss, and then he has flyaway just like Skarmory did. So this was a good one. You know, he only has 1 move space, but if you got him across the board, he'd win battles for you. And then Scyther. This is a nice one. Look at the, you know, the tornado down at the bottom. The way he's standing there, propped up. Almost, you know, it reminds me of the crane stance from Karate Kid. But he does not miss. Like, look at all of his abilities. He had Sword Dance, which doubles damage, like Focus Energy did. And then you land on Slash or False Swipe, and, you know, he doesn't miss. He's always going to hit, but he's never going to dodge anything either. So he was a really cool Pokemon to have. You know, 2 spaces. So I typically, when I played the game, I would have one space, 1 2 space, and 1 3 space Pokemon. So that way I'd always have good movement options. And then lastly, we got Brandon. Now this guy, he came with one of the decks. Look at that, very nice. And just a simple. Now, unlike Misty, he doesn't have that blue streak on his figure, but, you know, he didn't need it. You know, this is one that came with the deck, so why add extra rules that you're not going to use? But yeah, that was the Pokemon trading figure game, you know, in a nutshell. It's really cool. If you liked the video, leave a comment. If you want, I'll pull out the other figures, and I will definitely do a full look at all the figures and all the cards and everything. You know, maybe one day I'll go out and I'll try and complete the set. You know, I've got almost everything in the first set. I really wouldn't mind trying to get all of them. The way I've got them contained, that container you saw at the beginning of the video, is a really good way to move them around. You know, it's a big game, but it's a really cool game too. But yeah, that's the video. I hope you like this look at the Pokemon trading figure game. God, look at him, he's so happy. It's a cool game. If you ever get a chance to play it, I recommend it. And you know what? Thank you very much for watching. Hey, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave a like, leave a comment, and hit that subscribe button. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next game.